Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torisk. Jerry is a conflict resolution coach who helps Asian American leaders advance in their careers and life journeys. Having taken on several pharmacy leadership roles, Jerry started coaching in 2017 to help other Asian American professionals deal with the conflict they encounter at work, with their culture, and with themselves. Prior to starting his coaching business, Jerry served as a pharmacist and began facilitating leadership workshops way back in 2012. Today, Jerry offers a range of coaching services, which include individual coaching, group workshops, keynote presentations, and he has appeared in over 70 podcasts and plans to appear in plenty more. Here he is now to share his thoughts and views with you, Jerry Fu.
Hey, Jeremy. Good morning.
Good morning, Jerry. Thanks for joining us today on the GoPROcast. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I start off every show kind of throwback to my buddy Steve Noodleberg in the Daily Huddle, and he has a show called Tell Me Something Good. So tell us something good. What's good? What's good in your life today?
Oh, yeah. I got signed by two different coaching platforms, one locally and one through California. So I start training with one of them later today. And
that's awesome.
Excited to get that. Yeah, I'm trying to work on this more concrete exit strategy out of my day profession. And so it's nice to finally see some of the seeds kind of sprout.
Yes, and that's what it takes, right? How long have you been at it? I know I told everyone in the background, but how long have you been at this concerted effort to do this?
Yeah, I tell people, and this will tie into the bigger path, but I started officially my own company in October 2020. What I tell people is it took a pandemic for me to finally get some real skin in the game. And so, yeah, just you eat dirt for a couple months, hoping to just stay alive. I did some private tutoring on the side. That was mainly how I covered my expenses last year. And just keep doing podcasts, keep meeting people, keep being generous and demonstrating that, hey, you know what, maybe this guy actually could help us. And
I love that.
And just trust that, hey, okay, as long as I have just enough money to hang on and not go in the red, it doesn't matter how, whether you win by a little or a lot, you won the game, right?
Exactly. So winning it. It's like what's his name? I just had the money guy. He says beans and rice and beans, right? Dave Ramsey, right? And you're scraping and saving, right? The only time you should see the inside of a restaurant is if you're working there when you're saving money and paying off debt. So I'm a big Ramsey fan. But your current, are you still in pharmaceuticals then?
I still have my day job as a pharmacist, and thankfully my boss is very generous. Where they want me to have time off during the week, and
that's great.
I've tried to balance better between resting and actually working on my business in a healthy way.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been in pharmacy? Because that's not an easy career path.
Yeah. I graduated in 2005, so it'll be 17 years this June. So yeah, it's those years add up fast. Like I never would thought I'd be able to say 17 at this point. Yeah.
And then how did you know that you liked leadership training, and how'd you get the bug in the first place?
It's a journey for sure. And so basically, I mean, the ironic thing is that, I mean, for the longest time, I just hated being bad at leadership, and it was such a struggle for me. And then it wasn't until you struggle with something enough where it actually became a fascination. It's just because you've been around it for so long, and then you realize, you know what, maybe if I looked at this a little differently. And when you have that desirable difficulty, as Malcolm Gladwell likes to put it, right, eventually that struggle, if you're willing to struggle enough, will make you strong enough to, actually take on challenges, and you celebrate small wins, and then you let that build enough momentum into something bigger. So it wasn't anything that I just said, wow, I love leadership. It's like, I don't like being incompetent. I'm going to avoid this for many years. And then,
many people do that. Most people do that.
Yeah.
They avoid being uncomfortable. No, you
Yeah,
don't.
exactly.
No,
Yeah.
don't get better. And in fact, when you know it's something that you can use and that just do you good, if anything, or I should say, if nothing else,
Hmm.
learning how to being a better leader
Hmm.
makes you a better employee, because
Hmm.
you could kind of take some off the ownership's plate and kind of take on
Hmm.
more of a role, and it helps guide your future path
Hmm.
on your career way that you wouldn't have if you didn't take an interest in leading. And it's
Hmm.
not leading doesn't mean taking the helm. It just
Hmm.
means kind of looking at yourself with an ownership mentality,
Good.
and counting the beans for the company for every action that you take, knowing that it affects another department, and those
Hmm.
kind of little things add up over time, like you said.
Hmm.
But standing up in front of other people and kind of
Hmm.
holding yourself accountable for their actions, that's a whole nother level of leadership.
Hmm.
And that part, it takes a lot longer to kind of acquire a like for it, for a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
people anyway.
this is the acquired taste for sure.
Yeah. So how did you what about leadership did you like to do you like to teach? Like, is there a specific role? I know you work with the Asian Americans. Do you work with Asian Americans exclusively now, or is it just something that is kind of at your disposal, so it's like friends and family and networking, and that's where you're going to start, or is that where you want to focus on?
Oh, it's a great question. So yeah, part of my leadership or business coaching journey involves niching down, and so a lot of novice coaches, myself included, were afraid to niche down initially because we thought, well, that would exclude business, when actually the
Yes.
opposite is true. And so it's not that I exclusively work with Asian Americans, but we talk about how our ideal clients are who we were 10 years ago, and so by that, I
Hmm.
have a heart for people who struggle with the same conflicts that I did when I was in my mid 20s and early 30s, even just to say, hey, what my parents told me growing up isn't working anymore. And,
Yes.
I don't even know how to process, what I'm doing. How do I even discern all the noise that's out there? What's useful? So to be able to position myself as a guide for the next round of leaders that don't want to settle for the same emotional scars and problems that previous generations dealt with,
Right.
that's what as part of my legacy I hope to leave, is just to say, hey, you know what, yeah, we broke through this generational curse of fear, shame, and guilt, and the willingness to speak up and step into difficult situations without fear of a failure, or just
Yeah.
this underlying resentment that you don't get over when you just keep it to yourself.
And fear, shame, and guilt, those are three things that if you really look at those,
Hmm.
they're all internalized issues. All
Hmm.
right. Fear, shame, guilt, they're all things that you're putting on yourself too,
Hmm. Yeah.
for the most part. And so I think Mark Twain wrote, one of my favorite quotes is, you would be surprised, you'd care a lot less about what other people thought about you if you really knew how little people think about you.
He's a great source of quotes.
It's a
Absolutely.
great one, but that's a good one because it really does, that fear, shame, and guilt
Mhm.
comes from what others see of me, what others think of me,
Yeah.
what they're perceiving of me, and
Mhm.
so those are all self-conscious killers.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you get into, and I think you specialize from what I'm reading, is
Mhm.
conflict resolution,
Mhm.
and so how you go about why there's conflict in the first place has a lot to
Mhm.
do with how you're perceived, how you think you're being perceived, and how you respond.
Mhm.
So tell us some tricks or tips about what you teach about effective conflict resolution.
Yeah, yeah. To quickly elaborate, right? There's several different kinds of conflict. There's healthy conflict, right? Like the current version of me versus the future version of me, right? Or business development, right? What's making money for us now versus what would make money for us 5 years from now, right? These are healthy conflicts. But if you're going to grow as a person or a business or anything, right, it's going to involve conflict between the status quo and your potential. There's also, the kind of unhealthy conflicts that my framework is meant to help with, right? When people are, showing up late, how are you going to confront that, right? One of the situations, so I'll overlay a story on top of the framework just to kind
Yes.
of walk people through it. So at one point I had to evict a roommate because he defaulted on his lease. And um, you know, and it's like, you don't give me a guide. Like, no one gives you a guide and say, how do you evict this guy, right? I mean, you could do a Google search and I have no idea what kind of result would come up, right? But so my framework that I basically had to walk, take my own medicine and walk myself through, right?
Yes.
Okay, step one, imagine what a successful conversation would sound like. So in this case, successful may not be restoring the relationship to hunt back up to 100%. Sometimes if it's a smaller thing, yeah, it's like, hey, could you stop leaving dirty dishes in the sink? Like it just gets in the way of things, and it just makes us look bad. It could be that easy, right? In this case, right, a successful conversation is, hey, you defaulted on your lease and you have 30 days to get out, or I call the cops. Right. But I mean, I struggled to remember that I was the landlord and I had this authority, and he banked on the fact that he's like, oh, Jerry's a nice guy. He wouldn't actually evict me. And so I'm just sitting here like he knows exactly how he's upsetting me and he's okay with it and basically daring me to actually follow through. So in this case, step one, hey, you know what? Maybe the conversation could go well. Hey, man, you defaulted on your lease. You got to get out. Yeah, I know. Well, I'll start packing up. Right. It could have been that easy, but you have to allow for that possibility that maybe, so that way you're not dying 1,000 deaths being like, well, I don't know how this is going to go. You have to have at least some target in mind. Right. All right. So step 2, 10 seconds of courage. Hey, I need to just set this in motion and lock the gate behind me so I don't default to comfort or back out or rationalize away what I know I need to do. Right. And so people think, oh, I got to put on my entire superhero costume and then I really got to get ready to do this. And it's like, yeah, you said that 3 months ago. Like, what's it going to take? Right. I can't wait 3 months for this guy to move out.
Right.
And so 10 seconds. Hey, all right. Let me write up the eviction letter. Right. Let me put it on his door and just trust that he's going to open it. And, that's still maybe a cop out for some people, but at least, hey, you know what? I put something out there that he can't ignore.
First step.
Right? Exactly. So, hey, just set that in motion. Right. Step 3 is to script your critical moves. It's like, all right, let me not let everything rattle in my head to make sure I address everything. Let me get it out on paper. Let me organize my thoughts, get in a logical flow. And, that way I'm not leaving anything out and I can focus on what's most important. So step 4 now is to rehearse those critical moves. Hey, let me look in the mirror. How's my body language? How's my tone of voice? Do I project calm and confidence? Maybe I role play with a friend.
Yes.
Hey, man, I got to evict my roommate. Can we spar a little in a dojo before I actually get out on the street to fight? Right. And that way, right. You think back to, like when the sit-ins during the civil rights movement, right? They didn't just go in there and sit in and hope that things would go well. Like they practiced with people who were willing to, get them ready for the kind of pushback that they were going to receive. Right. It's just like, hey, they're going to shove, cigarette butts on you. They're going to go blow smoke in your hair. They're going to shove you. They're going to, yank your clothes. It's like, okay, let me get used to this before I actually get out there. And then step 5 is just to do it, right? The cost of inaction is greater than the cost of trying and failing. And, it took me a long time to realize that, right? Just to say, hey, you know what? You're sitting here resentful and frustrated, but you're not willing to do what it takes to get rid of that. Don't you want to get rid of that? And you're like, well, yeah. It's like, okay, so how much longer are you going to sit here and stew in that?
I love it. I love it. All that stuff is great.
5 steps, man. Just the lighted pathway. You might fail, but at least you increase your chances. And even if you don't get the result you want, at least you're like, oh, I'm so glad. Like I got this off my chest. And you know what? Let me try again. Let me evaluate how I did on each step. Tweak my approach, and next thing you know, right now I'm coaching people through the same thing, right?
Yes, and that applies through anything, right? That visualization of what could some of the responses be, and then more importantly is on the worst case scenario responses is how am I reacting to those responses?
Good.
Because that's where I fail most of the time in my conversations. Is that I have a lot of rage issues from growing up, the way I grew up. And so my reaction is very defensive and forceful. And so if I visualize the negative and I come back, then it's not the first time that I see that punch and that 1-2 combination. I can flare it and deflect and then turn it around. And then that tells me a lot too, when they come back with that kind of mean or aggressive response. Well, maybe I hit a nerve there. So instead of getting mad and defensive myself, I think that's a bit of a victory as well. I'm on the right path, obviously.
Good job.
Don Shula says it's the start that stops most people. So with your 5 steps here, breaking it down this way, I think it'd make it a lot easier to get going. And then I forget what movie it was on. I love quotes, but I think it was I forget which movie it was. But the guy says to his daughter, he's talking to his daughter about doing something hard. Oh, you know what? I do remember it. It'll come back to me, but he says, I don't have to go all the way. I just have to go halfway and then 1 step.
There you
right?
go.
The courage doesn't have to be visualizing the whole way. It's
Mhm.
going halfway and then one step. And then it's easier then to get to the rest of the end of the line than it is to
Mhm.
turn around and come back,
There
you
you
know?
go.
So that's one that I use a lot. And anything that's hard is
Mhm.
don't look at the whole thing. Just break it down in half and just do half it in
Mhm.
one step. And then I'm closer to finishing than I am of going back to the beginning.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you have people, like let's say someone is chronically late for work, what
Mhm.
do you think some of the steps would be here to first try to correct that action?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people jump to conclusions about people being late. Let's just take the
Mhm.
easiest thing in the world. Some of the most
Yeah.
common people being late. How would
Mhm.
you coach somebody through handling an employee that was chronically late, especially when there's maybe 4 or 5 people in a pod
Mhm.
where they're coming sitting at their cubicle, obviously 10 minutes late every day? What
Oh
would
yeah.
you suggest for that?
Oh yeah, no, I can tell you from experience. I've dealt with this, and for better or worse, I've continued to tolerate it on a not so great level. So we're all in the middle of this, right? So you could first get curious, right? Hey, right, let me just learn a little more about your situation, right?
That's it.
We
That's the
understand,
money out there.
yeah, it's right, yeah. It's like, hey, uh, help me understand something, right? What am I missing? The
Yeah.
expectation is that everyone is here when the pharmacy opens at 9 a.m. and you keep showing up at 9:15. Um, you know, do you can you tell me a little more about like what's going on like in order to get here? And they'll say, oh well, my son's school opens up at a certain hour, and then to drop him off, they don't let us drop off any earlier, and
Right.
then getting down here, there's traffic, da da da. It's like, okay, so thank you, right? Because now I'm not assuming that my story about it is correct. That that's like, oh, they're just being lazy and
They just don't
irresponsible and
care.
unresponsive, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And
right.
so it's like, hey, well, um, you know, this is still causing problems for the team, right? Like I've been told, that they're frustrated that you still aren't showing up on time, even though you seem to have a legitimate reason to not show up on time. So, how do you want to compensate for that, right? And then they could say, well, maybe I take a shorter lunch, depending on like legal
Yeah. Right.
legal
Exactly.
regulations, right? Or they say, well, will you let me stay 15 minutes late? Can I just, would you be okay with shifting my shift by,
Love it.
15
All
minutes?
that stuff. Good stuff.
And that's assuming that, the manager is willing to do that, right? Because it's
Yes.
like, if the manager says, hey, yeah, you know what, that's fine. Make sure the team is aware,
Yeah.
and that, yeah, staying 15 minutes over, he's willing to do that to accommodate your schedule. Maybe that's the compromise, right?
Could be.
But other times, right? I mean, I've written people up because they're like, well, traffic's really bad and da da da. And you're just kind of like, okay, you have 3 options. One, move closer, right? Number two, leave earlier, which is what I've been trying to tell you to do. Or 3, find a job that fits your work commute, right?
And don't you love that they use that as legitimate? Because you don't understand. I have got 5 dogs I have to walk in the morning. Do you know how
Oh
much
my
work
gosh.
walking 5 dogs
Yeah.
is, especially when it's raining? Like,
Yeah.
how is that my fault at all?
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And so where do you see yourself going from like getting to the masses? How do you scale this? I'm in kind of the same position as you. I left my
Yeah.
job. Well, I'm one step further than you. I left my
Okay.
job July 21st, 2021. Where
Good
are we? Yeah.
job.
So
Congratulations.
after 30 years,
Oh wow.
kind of semi-retired, and it's not, I don't even know how to spell retire. So the next day I started building the studio
Good job.
and in building this business. But how do you scale the business? How do you go from your job to doing this full time, which is not easier? You
Mhm.
might have more of a passion for it, but it's definitely harder.
Yeah.
I know that. So what's your plan? How you branding, marketing? Where are you putting your efforts and your
Yeah.
focus?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy to admit, guys, a lot of this is still pulpy for me, right? Year one was just survival, and then planting seeds and just hanging on. And so, yeah, part of my exit strategy will involve reaching out to more podcasts and just trying to, add value and just, kind of be faithful to number one, first, who's available and willing to take a chance on me. And then as I develop more of a reputation, right, maybe I get called up to the big leagues and see what happens there. Scaling will involve, like I'm actually designing a micro course on conflict resolution through a platform another coach is starting called Blossom. And so that'll be nice to kind of be able to have some revenue stream that isn't directly tied to my efforts, right? And so I think that's part for us solopreneurs, just realizing it's like, okay, like I don't have enough money to hire somebody, or I'm going to contract them on a very minimal basis.
Yes.
And just starting to delegate. Okay, either am I willing to move at a slower pace because I'm willing to do everything myself, or at one point and I need to figure out exactly what kind of numbers I need in order to figure out. Okay,
starting with that end.
Higher. Yeah. So that is my challenge currently, because like I deliberately didn't sink a lot of my own capital to force myself to bootstrap, because we all can get caught in that, if I just throw enough money at it, it'll go away.
Sure.
It's like I mean, I'm doing that with my copywriting right now, right? Like, copywriter that I got in touch with, he's like, I'll build your, sales email campaign, $1,000. I'm like, nope, I am going to write it myself. And then, after enough procrastinating, though, I came back to him with some drafts. And it's like, I'll clean it up for $100. I'm like, that sounds a lot better. And now I have a greater understanding of what it takes to write good copy, right? So things like that. I'm willing to put off a little time, and I get it. Some people have challenged me. They're just like, hey, as long as you still kind of straddling both fences and you still got this day job, you're going to use that as an excuse to not work as hard on your own business. And so
I can see that point, but it's subjective. Certain people will say things and they have no clue how hard you work at either one of those.
Fair enough.
They put that on yourself, because I know that you sound like you work very hard and diligently and thoughtfully and purposefully on this.
No,
and I don't think that you're going to be letting up on your day job either, because it's a matter of life and death.
No.
Paying attention
you work
there.
as hard as you can. Yeah. No, you honor your boss's paycheck for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're kind of transparent with them too about your future and what you want them to do. Tell us about. Do you want to talk about legacy? The thing. Let me get this up here and figure out which button to push on this. I think it's 3 here. So this is something I found on your LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. And let us know about that.
Yeah. So this was a fun opportunity. This actually came about because I talked with another podcast host. So there's a legacy coach named Angelina Carlton who got me in touch with Alex Brookman, who is another coach. And so Alex puts on this virtual event every year as a charity event to say, hey, let's get all these coaches together. All the proceeds go to charity to support, funding for, a disease that still needs resolution. And so this is a huge thing. I offer people, a chance to walk through my framework. It's free registration. If you want VIP access, obviously any of those proceeds go towards this cause that Alex champions. It's a great collection of coaches. And so this is the kind of thing, these are the kind of seeds, right, that are planting, right? I apply to be on a podcast. Angelina says, hey, I'm half Korean. Let's talk about race conflict. So that led to this. And she goes, hey, you know what? You should meet Alex. And so this is another coach that I met through Legacy, right? All these other coaches that connecting with me through this program as well. And they're like, hey, you know what? You're only one step away from meeting someone, an important influencer, right? Like, you don't know. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? It's just like, okay, let me work my way up the ladder, and but not to like make myself better, but if I add enough value to everyone else,
absolutely.
Right? Zig Ziglar, right? Like, make everyone else happy and you'll make yourself happy, right?
Yeah, I don't have a sound effect for this, but I'm getting one. I actually have one in mind. My last guy, last guest, Marco Torres. Nice. He's a great guy. He's like, value bomb. He's like, I'm gonna use your voice. Every time I hit that, I'm gonna go value bomb.
Would be beautiful.
Yeah. He's got a great voice. It's really funny. So this is good. And they go to BRUECKMANN.ca for free, and it's free tickets. At this point,
it's free registration. Yep, it's coming up in February. Just get on the website and just sign up for free. There are, this is one of those things where it's like freemium, right? They're just like, hey, let's go ahead and give you something of value. And if you like enough of our value, maybe imagine what
Oh, it works.
could happen if you add access to our paid services. But it's not just, hey, let's just throw you some scraps and good luck. It is, hey, look, we honestly want you to succeed, and if this is as far as you want to take our help, sure, like we want to be generous for sure.
And you never know. I mean, even just touching one person in the right time, right moment, this is what it's all about. I do a lot of free things, quote unquote free. They each add value to each other. They're giving me a platform to take an at bat, to talk, to tell my story. Before I get on another stage, I just have that one more rep, to go through the steps, because that's what it takes to do what I do is on the professional speaking side of the ledger, getting out on stage and talking to thousands of strangers. A lot of people think that's pretty tough. I enjoy it, but it's got to be polished. And how do you polish it? Well, you do these kind of things over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, it's great. And the fact that I even did as many reps as I did on podcasts is just kind of amazing, really, just to say, hey, you know what, you don't realize you're getting better as you're having all this fun talking to people.
That's right.
It's like, oh my gosh, like I can actually have fun. Like development doesn't have to be like in the gym. You're like, I can do squats. I can't love squats, but I will do them. Right. It's like, no, I'll have to. I love podcasts and I want to keep doing them. I might need to pace myself a little better, but for the time being, it's just fun meeting people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. There's a vetting process that's good. That's healthy.
True.
What is your definition of success? How do you see yourself successful once you do the transition?
Yeah. I have to be careful not to chase. That just, not to be like, okay, got the wife, got the company, okay, what else am I going after? Success for me is, being free of a 9-to-5 job where, I do work I love, but it doesn't dictate my life. And so that means, being able to, so the ultimate definition then is to be able to invest my time and resources in the people and activities most meaningful to me. I think that's my definition of success.
That's great. And we can find out more about you. Let me head over to this little thing here at adaptingleaders.com. That's a great website, by the way. You got a good one there. Those are fun to trying to come up with these website names. It can be challenging sometimes, but you did good there. Adaptingleaders.com. If you want to check out more. And then this is the visual of the website. It's a good website. I was taking a look at it earlier. I don't know if you did it or if you put some effort into it, but I like it. It looks good. I think it's effective. It tells you what you do. It's got some great tabs on it. Conflict resolution, I think, is really big these days. Your services also, and are really they're wide. You got a lot to choose from, and quite frankly, the prices are low. And I know that you're probably
right now
undercharging for a reason. But if anyone that wants to take advantage, because I can clearly tell that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you care, you've got a lot of experience personally through your 17 years pharmaceutical career, that you should take advantage of some of these courses that you are offering, because your prices are going to go way high pretty soon, especially when they're responsible for paying the bills. And quite frankly, you deserve to get what you deserve, and that's it's a lot more. So I appreciate you being on with us today. What do you want to tell everyone going goodbye? See, I forgot. I think you are offering the folks a free gift, so to speak.
Yeah, we can. Let's go over that. So if you visit the website, that's where all the goodies are. You get that free guide you can download on the framework that we went over today. It takes you through a little more detail and a case study, how to overlay that. If that resonates with you, you can also schedule a complimentary 30-minute call. Hey, tell me what you're working on, like experience coaching for yourself, no strings attached. And if that's still not enough for you, hey, check out the free blog where I summarize interesting and useful leadership books and offer other life hacks. So if you want a formal coaching package and get the value from that, great. If not, hey, you know what? We we said earlier, we still want to be generous and offer help. Yeah.
Adaptingleaders.com. It's really great, easy to remember. Check it out. Check Jerry Fu out. He's going to be great. I look forward to sharing some stages with you in the future, my friend.
Oh, please do. I'd love to.
We're going the same way
together. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going the same way. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. We'll talk again soon. All right. And I appreciate every one of you watching the GoPROcast today and hopefully learning something new from Jerry and from myself. This is what we do. People like us, we hook up on these podcasts and you go, look, there's another resource I can lean on, someone I can help, someone that can offer me some advice. And we want to be that for you. So hopefully you're checking these out, taking good notes, and checking out these websites because everyone can get 1% better every day. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time on the GoPro.